It's May 25th, 1979. Inside a dimming cinema, a full house of moviegoers sat anticipating a night of frights. And as the first seconds of the 117-minute runtime churned from reel to screen, few could anticipate the impact one seemingly B-level monster flick would have in a genre and an industry. Contained in those minutes of fear and shock are plenty of scenes one could speak of lyrically. But there is one that I find more terrifying, more anxiety-inducing, and more important to both the tone of the film and the mythos of a newborn fictional world. Welcome to Sidebar. So sit back, grab that security blanket, and watch through half-covered eyes as we crawl onwards and explore the terror of the vent scene. Situated at 71 minutes, the topic of discussion today comes at a pivotal point in the movie. It leads up to the third death scene, and the timing and victim of choice is what helps drive the anxiety that we as a viewer feel throughout this segment. It also sets up the second half of the movie, and although not initially intended, we can view this moment as a catalyst in Ripley's character arc, one that would set her in the path to becoming one of the most iconic characters in cinema. But to truly understand the importance of this scene, we first need to take a step back and analyze the characters and events leading up to this moment within the landscape of 1979. When we get to the vent scene, we've already had two deaths. Officer Kane being the first casualty, the second is Brett, whose death gives us our first ever look at the xenomorph. It's after Brett is killed that we as a viewer fully understand what it is they are dealing with. We know the alien's size, we know it's great at hiding, and we know it has acid for blood. So with the stakes being so high already, why is the next death scene so important? Well, let's quickly take stock of who the crew members are, going from the highest rank down to the lowest. We begin with Dallas, captain of the Nostromo. Kane is the executive officer and second in command. Ellen Ripley is the warrant officer, followed by Ash, the science officer, although we should note that the status of his rank does not fall in line with the rest of the crew. We then have Lambert as the ship's navigator, Parker as the chief engineer, and right at the bottom is Brett, the engineer technician. Okay, so we've lost the second in command, followed by the grunt of the crew. Crucially, however, we still have key members left, including the captain. Up to this point, we as a viewer have been given very little information as to who is our leading character. While a first-time viewer in today's age may find it easier to land on Sigourney Weaver, we must understand that in 1979, this wouldn't be the case. Sigourney was not well known, and apart from a couple of movie appearances, her work at this point was mostly in commercials and stage plays. Alien would end up being her breakthrough role. Another detail of importance is that at the time of its release, women were typically not the hero in this genre. In fact, we can attribute this movie as one of the game changers in cinema. So now that we have context, if we were a 1970s audience, who would be the logical protagonist? Well, Tom Skerritt as Dallas was already a veteran in film and television. Audiences would have recognized him, seen that he's the captain, and voila! We can create an expectation. To further add to this natural expectation, the movie has Dallas being part of every key moment in the film. Who is part of the expedition that discovers the derelict ship? Dallas. when the trio come back to the Nostromo, whose sense of heroism confronts Ripley's logic and protocol, demanding that she break the quarantine procedure and let them inside.
Once again, Dallas.
Who's inside the med lab with Ash when they try to remove the facehugger from Kane's face?
You might have heard of Dallas?
And when the alien is born and subsequently kills two of the crew, who is it that keeps the rest focused as they come up with a plan to flesh out the alien using the air vents?
And Dallas.
So, when Dallas volunteers himself to be the one to go into the vents, we as the viewer are comfortable with this direction. If anyone's surviving, or at least lasting until the end, it's Dallas.
Yeah, about that.
I mentioned earlier that the vent scene is a pivotal moment in the franchise, not only for Ripley, but for the series as a whole. The scene contains 4 elements that will be reused in future films, and these elements have become iconic symbols of the franchise. First, we have slime, or KY jelly, and Dallas has the honor of being the first to scoop a handful of this foreboding slime, one that will go on to become the Xenomorph's call sign. If you happen to come across this stuff, it's likely too late for you.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Following our brush with slime is the motion detector. Now, while it's the one employed in the second movie that would end up being replicated in future projects,
Man, this is a big fucking signal.
we must nevertheless tip our hat to its utilization in this scene. It was quickly assembled by Ash to catch the chest burster, but it's at this moment that we are exposed to its full potential. Next up is the flamethrower, which is wielded for the first time in the franchise by Dallas. In a second moment of irony, its use is again recommended by Ash, albeit indirectly after being egged on by Ripley and fleshed out by Dallas.
I mean, most animals retreat from fire, yes?
Fire, yeah. Parker, can you rig 3 or 4 incinerator units?
And the last key element in the vent scene is the vent itself. This crucial behavioral trait of the Xenomorph is first uttered here.
No question, it's using the head to move around.
And its importance is easy to see. You honestly can't have an alien movie or game without vents. It's as the great David Attenborough says,
And here lives a truly extraordinary species.
Well, there's nothing left to do but enjoy the ride and see how it all comes crashing down.
They rig up a flamethrower for him to use and give him a flashlight. Crucially, however, these two are independent of one another. By that I mean they are 2 separate pieces of equipment. In the move that is typical in survival horror video games, an easy way to create extra tension is to have the player, or in this case Dallas, have to choose between pointing the light and shooting the flamethrower. And we for the first time begin to doubt Dallas's plan.
Okay, no problem. Let's watch as Dallas pushes on.
As he crawls through those vents, those claustrophobic passages that are too tight to allow him to both aim and move at the same time. Once again, Dallas is presented by another conundrum. He can either shuffle forward, inch by inch, or stand still and shoot. That's our second strike. Now let's look at Lambert. She's holding the motion detector. If the alien is in the vents, she can catch his movements and warn Dallas. But when we get a glimpse of the screen, we are only shown a moving dot that can at best give you a vague sense of movement, but little to no information on distance and direction. So as Dallas crawls through, Lambert picks up his signal. Just one dot. But then a second comes. It's the alien, and it's moving towards Dallas. And it's at this point that his bravery shatters. In a moment of panic, he concedes, and he wants to get out. He's stuck in a junction, unsure of which direction to go as the alien continues to close in. The hunter is now the hunted, and we begin to understand what's in store. Sure enough, one wrong turn later, and our unfortunate captain meets his demise. You can't deny an alien hug.
Dallas?
Thank you for watching. This was an Alpaca Thunder sidebar production. I'm Felipe, signing off.
It's a robot. Ash is a goddamn robot.